Thank you, Clerk Moss, and welcome everyone to the Tuesday. Whoops, sorry about that. There you go, camera's on now. Welcome everyone to the Tuesday, November 28th, 2023 Washington County Board of Commissioners meeting. Clerk Moss, could you do us the honors, please?
Certainly, Chair Harrington. The Washington County Board of Commissioners, also meeting as the Board of Directors for Clean Water Services and all other county service districts, is now meeting this regular session, November 28th, 2023. Commissioner Treese?
Here.
Commissioner Fye?
Present.
Vice Chair Rogers?
Here.
Chair Harrington?
Here.
And I'll announce Commissioner Willie is excused for tonight.
Yes, thank you. We have a couple of changes to our agenda compared to when it was initially published, so you may already be in the know. We have revised the PowerPoint presentation for our second public hearing topic. That is on ordinance number 899 regarding the North Plains urban growth boundary. Then we took an item off the original consent agenda and we'll be taking action on that tonight. So it's now in the action section, which is after our public hearings. And that is with regard to approving the operating intergovernmental agreement between the City of Hillsborough and Clean Water Services. So that'll be happening tonight too. That leaves us with a consent agenda of 14 items. So that catches you up on our updates. Next, we'll move on to public communication. This is an opportunity for members of our community to come and speak to us for up to 2 minutes an individual on any subject you would like. Clerk Moss, do we have anyone who wishes to testify tonight?
Yes, we do, Chair Harrington. First up, we have Dale Feek. Dale?
Took my coat off, but it is still cold in here like it was on the previous meeting I was here. Dale Feek, Chair of the Washington County Citizen Action Network, and I'm speaking on behalf of that, WCCAN. Kevin is passing out what I already sent to you by email, but it's important for you, if you want to become informed, to read the attachments, okay? And so the email will let you read the attachments. The handout that you're getting will not let you do that. 2 topics for today. It is lead in aviation fuel at Hillsborough Airport, and the other is Intel's flawed study that they hired done by Echo Northwest and was presented in 2013 before the group, Westside Economic Alliance. So, first topic, please consider writing a letter to the Port of Portland in support of elimination of lead in aviation fuel. The documentation is there for you to look at to give you information on how to do that. Second thing was the economic study by Intel. Intel paid for the study, Intel promoted the study, and it was flawed, okay? And the Oregonian and other people, Mike Roggaway, keep reporting on that study. And also, I think the North Plains people had the same type of study. They're flawed, okay? Now, and I say that because I attended this meeting, and when Jill Island and the Echo Northwest president made their presentation, I asked the PhD ahead of time about who did that and why they didn't do a cost benefit. Did they do it? And they said, yes, we do, but Intel didn't ask for a cost benefit. All they asked for is an economic study. And Island paused, hesitated, and the president said, I didn't rehearse the answer to that question. So please take a look at the documentation I give to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Feek. Next, Madam Chair, we have Chris Edmonds.
Commissioners, thank you very much. Chris Edmonds, 525 3rd Street, Lake Oswego, Oregon. I'm here today, actually later to talk about Ordinance 899, and I won't take up much of your time. I specifically would like to address you during this section about the conduct of the Planning Commission on October 18th. I had previously submitted communication to this board. I've worked with local governments in and around the Portland area for 15 years. I have never attended or participated in a meeting in which publicly appointed advisory members personally disparaged elected officials and civil servants of another jurisdiction. I would encourage you to watch the recording of the October 18th hearing and to personally observe the conduct of some of the commissioners on the Planning Commission and their disparaging remarks and insinuations of corrupt activity of public officials, including the mayor of one of your cities here in Washington County. I have never testified like this before, but I believe as commissioners you have an obligation to know what's going on at those meetings. And I personally believe that the mayor of North Plains deserves an apology from this county for how she was treated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Edmonds. Would any other members in the auditorium wish to provide comment on any county-related topic for up to 2 minutes? I'll give you a moment to stand up, raise your hand, or come forward. Not seen in the room. Would any members online via Zoom wish to provide public comment for up to 2 minutes on any county-related topic? I'll give you just a moment to utilize raise hand function. Not seeing any hands, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Clerk Moss. Next on our agenda is the consent agenda. Tonight's consent agenda consists of 14 items, 2 sets of minutes, 7 items from Clean Water Services. You can tell we're nearing the end of a quarter with all those contracts and the end of the year too. 2 items from Facilities, Fleet, and Parks, and 3 items from Land Use and Transportation. What are the wishes of the commission?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of adopting tonight's consent agenda, please raise your hand or say aye. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 4-0. Next, we'll move on to board and commissions. And tonight, we have a proposal to appoint Allison Crace to the Rainbow Lane Special Road District Board for a term effective January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2026.
Since in my district, I'd so move, Madam Chair.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 4-0. And thank you, Ms. Crace, for serving the community in that very specific role. Next, we're going to move on to public hearings. Our first public hearing is related to our work as the Housing Authority of Washington County. So I would ask our staff to come up to make a brief staff report regarding a resolution and order in the matter of approving the tax-exempt bonds of the Housing Authority of Washington County that will finance the Affordable Housing Plan Phase 2 Portfolio Rehabilitation Project. This is all about taking care of the housing that we have today to extend its useful life. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Harrington and Commissioners. For the record, my name is Molly Rogers, and I am the Director of Housing Services. I'm here tonight as a follow-up to our November 7th presentation and approval of the second phase of the Housing Authority's preservation of affordable housing in dire need of renovation. Next slide, please. We are here tonight to conduct a public hearing on the issuance of tax-exempt bonds, commonly referred to as TEFRA hearing, which is the Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act. The Washington County Board of Commissioners is the local jurisdiction to approve the issuance of bonds as required by TEFRA. We have notified the public of this hearing in the Oregonian on November 20th. We gave the public an opportunity to comment on a proposed private activity bond issuance on the nature and location of the projects to be financed. Next slide. As you may recall from our presentation on November 7th, these bonds are supporting a larger rehabilitation effort to preserve affordable housing for 260 units across 5 properties. These apartments are currently home to 459 residents. And we do this scale of renovation really to leverage federal low-income housing tax credits and other housing financing tools, and we spread out the construction costs over more properties with varied rehab needs. The overall project costs are $131 million, and this bond issuance will bring in almost half of those total costs at $65 million in private activity bonds. And as a reminder, private activity bonds are allocated to each state, which means this issuance will not affect Washington County's debt service risk. This renovation will invest in on average $140,000 per home to ensure quality, sustainable homes for the next 30 years. Once renovated, these homes will serve low-income and moderate-income residents with incomes all the way from 0 to up to 80% of area median income. And it's also a broad mix of housing types and configurations as part of this renovation of the portfolio. And I will now turn it over to Andrew Crampton.
Thank you, Director Rogers. For the record, my name is Andrew Crampton. I'm Development Manager with Washington County. I'm also joined virtually with Mike Schrader from ORIC, who's been providing bond counsel and guiding us through the legal process for the TEFRA hearing. So much appreciation to Mike and his team. Just a quick reiteration of the location and scope of the properties. 260 units that range in size. The 2 largest properties are senior properties that are supported with project-based vouchers and rent assistance. These are the 2 largest and elevator-served buildings in Beaverton and in Hillsborough. Up the street is Tarkington Square. And then as well as walk-up style apartments in Cornelius, Hillsborough, and Maryland Terrace. Just a reminder on the approval process. We're here today for the TEFRA hearing to fulfill the tax exemption requirements for federal tax policy. A couple steps previously to get there. On October 18th, the project was awarded volume cap through the state allocation of low-income housing tax credits, as Director Rogers mentioned previously, is allocated by formula to each state. That was awarded this fall. And then Housing Authority approval of the partnership documents on November 7th. Those documents are being finalized and will be executed later this week in preparation for project closing on December 6th. And then because the Housing Authority is the bond issuer for this project, using the allocated volume cap through Treasury, on November 7th, the Housing Authority Board of Directors approved an issuance of up to $68 million in revenue bonds, a little bit of cushion through that bond issuance, $3 million cushion as we move towards closing on the project. The November 7th allocation guided us then for the Board of County Commissioners as the jurisdiction with authority in Washington County. This is again, a scattered site transaction across 4 jurisdictions. Washington County is the Board of Commissioners as the elected officials with jurisdiction to approve through the TEFRA hearing process the issuance of those bonds. So your board with this action today will be the final approval step to then move forward with a December 6th closing on the rehab project. And that will conclude my portion of the presentation. If there's anything to add with ORIC as bond counsel, now is the floor. Otherwise, we're happy to take questions.
Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments at this juncture? I would like to add at this point that I really appreciate all of the due diligence that the 2 of you have done in your role with Washington County, but also with the Housing Authority in going through all this due diligence for this phase 2. but also to compliment you on the delivery of all the Phase 1 projects. I've just, in my travels all around the county, have been paying attention from the outside to the renovation work that's been happening. And from just the outside, they're great additions. New envelope wraps, new siding, in some cases, appropriate new roofs. So your due diligence, your follow-through, not only on the financing, creative financing side so that we can preserve our affordable housing portfolio and extend it into future decades is really impressive. So thank you.
Thank you.
Now with that, we've had our presentation, but we need to have the public hearing next. So I'd like to open the public hearing. Clerk Moss, is there anyone who wishes to address us with regard to this TEFRA public hearing?
Yes, Mr. Dale Feek. Dale?
Chair Harrington and Commissioners, I'm Dale Feek, Chair of the Washington County Citizen Action Network. I listened to the presentation last time these people made the presentation, and I got more details and facts. I'm also impressed with the level of detail that they do, but also the level of detail you, Chair Harrington, as a former Metro councilor, and understands the need regionally as well as at the county level. And I also appreciate each of you commissioners of getting informed and understanding what's going on. It's important to have housing for low income, as the Planning Commission people at the last meeting said. One person said in particular, how is North Plains going to address low income housing in their development? And there wasn't a clear answer to that. And one advantage of having this big overview is that they understand, and that everybody else understands, how important housing is for the low income, and it's important to get that in the plan and have it guaranteed, okay? And there's no guarantee when you just have to do an urban growth expansion without that guaranteed within that. So my point is, good work with the people that just made their presentation, good work, Chair Harrington, and you commissioners, and good work for what? For funding and bonding what's necessary to get housing for people that need it. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Feek. Were there any other members in the auditorium tonight that wish to provide public comment on this public hearing, on this TEFRA hearing? Give you a moment to raise your hand, stand up, or come forward. I'm not seeing anyone else in the room. Would any members online viewing this meeting via Zoom wish to provide public comment on this public hearing? As you've heard from staff for up to 2 minutes, give you just a moment to utilize the raise hand function. Not seeing any additional hands. Chair Harrington.
Thank you, Clerk Moss. And with that, I would like to close tonight's public hearing. And Mr. Schrader, I should have acknowledged that you joined us on Zoom as well. I did not see any of my colleagues have any questions that necessitated our staff calling on you this evening. But nonetheless, thank you for being here. So.
Most welcome. A pleasure to be part of the project. Good work's being done.
Well, with that, Commissioners, I'm looking for a motion to approve the resolution and order in the matter of approving tax-exempt bonds of the Housing Authority of Washington County that will finance the AHP Phase 2 Portfolio Rehabilitation Project.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, Commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously, 4-0. Thank you. And onward, ho, we go to the next step with closing. Fingers crossed. All righty, next we'll move on to our second public hearing of this evening. First, I need a motion to read ordinance number 899 by title only.
Second.
All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, Commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. To our legal counsel, Ms. Duke Driesen, could you please read ordinance 899 by title only?
Ordinance 89899, an ordinance amending the comprehensive framework plan for the urban area and the rural natural resource plan to expand the North Plains urban growth boundary.
Thank you. And we're going to start off with a staff presentation. Please take it away.
Thank you, Chair Harrington and members of the board. My name is Erin Wardell, and I am the Planning and Development Services Manager. With me is Todd Borkowitz, Senior Planner, and Todd will be covering the staff report this evening.
Good evening, Chair Harrington and Commissioners. Today we'll be reviewing Ordinance Number 899, the proposed expansion of the North Plains urban growth boundary. So I'll provide an overview of the North Plains UGB expansion process and the policy framework, provisions for the county's ordinance, Planning Commission consideration, and then the current status of the UGB expansion. So North Plains is a city of about 3,500 people located north and west of most of the county's urban unincorporated area. Like Banks and Gaston, North Plains is located outside of Metro and has its own UGB that is distinct from the Metro UGB. UGB expansion to North Plains, like that for these two other cities, is governed by state rules. Oregon law requires that cities plan for 20 years of housing growth. It also allows cities to plan for 20 years of economic growth based on the types of industry that a city aims to attract. Cities must accommodate this growth forecast within their existing UGB, or when that forecasted growth cannot be accommodated, cities can follow a state-prescribed process for UGB expansion based on the state-defined criteria. North Plains followed this process, and Washington County and other partners collaborated. Once this process is complete, both the city and county must each adopt a proposed UGB expansion through ordinance. North Plains City Council adopted its ordinance earlier this year. Tonight is the first board hearing on the county's ordinance. So the proposed North Plains UGB expansion area, shaded here in gray, is approximately 855 acres, including 167 acres for housing and 688 acres for employment land. The proposed expansion is primarily north of US 26 and to the east and west of the current city limits. It includes 34 acres south of US 26 and south of the current North Plains UGB. So the need for this ordinance is codified in regional and county policy framework, including those listed here on the slide. The state's framework documents contain the detailed criteria the city used to determine the most appropriate land for the UGB expansion. A detailed description of the city's adherence to this policy framework for its UGB expansion is included in your staff report and was presented to the Planning Commission hearings on this ordinance. So staff recognizes that the city of North Plains is required by state law to plan for its future growth and will perform detailed planning for the UGB expansion area once the state acknowledges the city and the county's ordinances. We believe the city sufficiently followed the required process, undertook the appropriate analysis, prepared the required reports, and made appropriate findings to support the proposed UGB expansion. We also believe that the city met state requirements to determine the amount of residential and employment lands and expand the UGB into prime farmland, which will be reduced because of the UGB expansion. So along with the city adoption of the UGB, county adoption is required to move the North Plains UGB expansion forward for state acknowledgement. Ordinance 899 would reflect the UGB change in the county's comprehensive plan documents. Should the board reject the county's draft ordinance on North Plains UGB expansion, the expansion process could not move forward. The county's ordinance does not propose to redesignate any land uses in the UGB expansion area, at least at this time. So just prior to the first Planning Commission hearing on this ordinance, staff learned of a filed referendum on the city's UGB expansion ordinance. We since received confirmation that an adequate number of signatures from North Plains electors were received to place the item on the ballot, preventing the city's ordinance from going into effect until the city's voters decide on the matter. Therefore, the first level of UGB expansion approval is effectively on hold. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on Ordinance 899 on October 18th, then closed the public hearing and continued deliberations on November 15th. By the end of that Planning Commission hearing, the county had received extensive community feedback in opposition and in support of this ordinance, including oral testimony from 36 individuals and letters from 67 parties. And I believe that we just hit the 100 mark on letters received on this ordinance. Topics included those listed here, such as concerns with the loss of farmland and questions about the amount of employment lands proposed, as well as interest in job creation and additional services resulting from the UGB expansion. On November 15th, the Planning Commission continued its deliberations, asked additional questions to county and city staff, and learned of the direction provided by the board on this ordinance from your November 14th work session. After several failed motions, the Planning Commission continued its ordinance deliberations to December 6th. So given the uncertainty of the outcome of the of the May referendum on the city's UGB expansion ordinance, the board on November 14th provided direction to the PC that the PC could continue deliberations and make a recommendation prior to the election, but that the board intended to hold its first hearings on Ordinance 899 on November 28th, today, as noticed, but then continue the hearing to a date certain after the May 2024 election results are certified. So on a side note, North Plains staff are available here this evening should board members have any questions about their process before tonight's hearing is continued. We understand that North Plains staff have chosen not to provide oral testimony this evening out of respect for the board's indication that the hearing will be continued to July. At the continued July hearing, county staff expect North Plains staff and possibly elected officials will be present to provide testimony and answer technical questions from the board. Given this, staff recommends that the board conduct the public hearing on Ordinance 899 and, at the conclusion of the hearing, continue the hearing to July 16th, 2024, once the election results of the voter referendum are confirmed. That concludes our presentation. We're happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Before I turn to my colleagues to see if they have any questions on your report, I would just like to make a few comments. We did receive a letter today from Mayor Terry Linehan, the mayor of the city of North Plains. Thank you. And that letter is in our record. We also received by email a letter from the director of the Land Conservation Development Commission dated November 20th of 2023, so that is also in our record as well. And if anyone is interested in further details about the board discussion and the presentation and guidance we received both from our technical staff as well as from our legal counsel, that is fully available, the whole video recording and the audio and all the materials on our Washington County website, washingtoncountyor.gov. I also want to add that as the staff report just went over, I didn't change the slide, but magic happened. So as the staff report that we just heard and saw, the board indicated at our work session on November 14th that we intend to continue the hearing on this ordinance until July 16th of next year in order to allow the May election to take place before the board deliberates and takes action on this ordinance. While we will be opening a public hearing as advertised, we recommend that members of the public who want to address the board hold your oral testimony until our July hearing. Since no decision of the ordinance will be made today, the July hearing is the appropriate time to make a statement to the board. The board may receive written testimony between now and July. As just noted, we have over 100 letters thus far, and I mentioned 2 more tonight, and that written testimony will be included in the record. Now, if members of our community are still interested in testifying tonight, despite our intent to continue I have a proposal for my colleagues to consider. And it is a proposal to entertain a motion from one of you to limit the testimony on this item to 1 minute per person or 3 minutes if representing a group, for a total of 30 minutes of testimony this evening. Such a proposal is allowed by the board's adopted rules of procedure. So I just wanted to put that out there for you to ponder before I ask to see if you're interested in that. Before that, let me check in to see if any of you have any questions of our staff on the presentation report that we got tonight. Do you have any questions?
I do. A couple comments, a couple questions. One, from what I've read and followed, the city followed all state regulations that they needed to file and to perform. We're simply adjudicating. That's exactly our role, coming to a conclusion at some point. Is there anything in these slides that have changed the staff's mind since the time they were printed, which was just not that long ago in the presentation tonight, to say that the city did not follow all applicable state laws, in your opinion? I understand we can always have arguments about that. Is there any changes? I think that was on page 6 or your slides.
I'm going to say no to that, but I'm going to defer to Aaron.
No.
Okay, that's thank you. I just want to clarify that. Secondly, to the good mayor who I see sitting in the front row down there, I am disturbed by the gentleman's comments from Lake Oswego. I saw your letter earlier. This county has always had a long-standing policy of being very respectful. We can disagree. We're human beings. We can disagree. We should do that in a very professional manner, collegially. I would like, Aaron, this is just a request, I'd like to have you brief me or Stephen on the comments that were made, because there's no excuse in my mind, I'm just talking for myself, that we ever are disparaging to another elected official from any of our committees. That's just not, in my mind, tolerable. So if you give me a briefing on that, I'd love to hear it.
Absolutely. We'll do that.
Madam Chair, thank you. Other than I do support what your proposal was, I think that's very appropriate.
Any other questions of our staff?
I do not have a question. I just want to say thank you to the staff and thank you to the City of North Plains for the information that you've provided us in the professional manner it's been provided and with the briefings all along the way. I really appreciate being knowledgeable as we approach this situation. So again, my thanks to our staff and also Mayor Lenahan, to your staff as well.
Chair Hinton, I don't have any questions for our staff. I just want to say to the mayor, thank you for joining us tonight. It's great to see you and your staff as well.
Thank you. And I will just add that at our work session on the 14th, we asked our staff several questions about the nature of our role in reviewing the UGB expansion request before the county. And we also asked our legal counsel about what effect the referendum has. So we find ourselves in the situation where a sufficient number of residents have signed a petition to refer the city council's decision to them for approval or not. So what that does is it says that the city's completion, it hasn't been reached yet. We have to satisfy that additional step through that election process. And that's why through our discussion, we said, okay, we have to accept that because of the voter referral, we have to wait. Hence, waiting until we have the certified election results, and then we'll pick back up. We did leave the option open for the Planning Commission to take the result of our conversation and to decide if they wanted to complete it or not. And they've chosen to continue their discussion of that until their December 6th, if I got that. December 6th meeting. So that's where we're at. So first things first, before I open a public hearing, I would ask if my colleagues are interested in a motion to limit the testimony on this item to 1 minute per person or 3 minutes if representing a group, and our meeting procedures defines that, for a total of 30 minutes of testimony this evening.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 4-0. So to be clear, what that means is we're still going to have a public hearing. We're going to provide 1 minute for each person who wishes to testify tonight, the opportunity to do so. So at this juncture, I will open a public hearing and ask Clerk Moss, do we have anyone who wishes to provide such testimony this evening?
Yes, we do, Madam Chair. So we're going to start. Mr. Feek, were you intending on speaking on this one? Okay, you're up first, followed by Jacqueline Jones. We'll be there first, too.
And I realize that you may have signed up before we made this change for 1 minute, so you can just decide to not testify tonight if that is your choice, but it is your choice.
Madam Chair Harrington, I'm Dale Feek, Chair of the Washington County Citizen Action Network. Does that mean I get 3 minutes or 1?
According to our records, you get 1 minute.
I'm sorry I asked the question, but I accept the answer. I attended the North Plains hearing, and I appreciated the courtesy of the mayor and the staff during that hearing. I opposed it at that time. I attended the Planning Commission meeting. I made public comment, and I appreciated the Planning Commission members. And I made written comment to staff and to the chair, Deborah Lockwood, about the process and procedures. And I know she did because she emailed me back and said that she recommended the Planning Commission be in charge of in-servicing the Planning Commission of how to run a meeting, which includes how to follow parliamentary procedure so that it doesn't get out of hand. And so I would think that the Planning Commission and the staff at the county need to take that seriously and make sure that the commissions, and make sure that the commissions are well-trained on parliamentary procedure so that there is decorum well served. Thank you.
All right, Jacqueline Jones. I submitted written. Okay. Aaron Nichols? Same. Chris Edmonds? Same. Okay. Would anyone else that didn't get a chance to sign up in the auditorium wish to provide comment on this public hearing? A moment, just get my attention, please.
Good evening, Chair, and Commissioner Fry, Commissioner Treese, and Commissioner Rogers. My name is Terry Lanahan. I'm the mayor of North Plains. And do I need to say my address?
No, you're fine.
Thank you. Great. I just want to say thank you for your professionalism tonight and in the future. This is a very complex issue, something that several of you on this committee have been involved in years ago, and so I know that you understand what this is about. And I also know that you've been to my community, and you've been to my functions, and you've been very committed to wanting to see positive for North Plains happen for my residents and for the area around my community. I also want to say thank you to the county staff, LUT. They have been involved in the process from the beginning. They have been very professional, very helpful, and I am just extremely grateful for their leadership and grateful for your leadership. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes everyone in the auditorium. Would any member online wish to provide public comment on this public hearing, as you've heard the staff report and explanation from staff and comments from the chair and commissioners? Give you just a moment to utilize the raise hand function. Not seeing any additional hands, Chair Harrington.
All right, and with that, I'll close tonight's public hearing and ask for a motion to continue consideration of ordinance number 899 to date certain July 16th, 2024.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Discussion, just one thing.
Yep, discussion.
Yep, just really, really quickly, so that everyone knows my position. My position in the adjudication process is simply, did the city follow state law, and have they met the requirements? And so I'm still going to listen to whatever we hear in July, but that's why I asked the specific questions I did. Is there any fatal flaws? And you've done everything that you were required to do. I may or may not like personally how large it is, but that's not my role. That's yours. It's certainly your role. So I think that those who testify in July, we should concentrate on on what our role is, and that's simply to say you met or did not meet. And secondly, Stephen out there, I'm hopeful that Dale Feek's comments on the parliamentarian actions are listened to. I think that's a good comment, as well as encourage the Planning Commission to not be so divided, come to some consensus to give us some direction. So anyway, that's my comments.
Thank you. I would just add that we had that same conversation at our work session, and our staff spoke to the level of training that they have tried to ensure that Planning Commission members have individually and have as a group. I find the personal statements made towards elected officials, mayors, city councilors, as well as staff of our city jurisdiction, very unfortunate. These are difficult positions. There are a lot of requirements placed on us as elected officials without necessarily supports to navigate those particulars. So it is, I think, a very important statement to say that we can disagree on the issues, but we should not be disagreeable to one another. And I think there is a lot of concern, not only from my colleagues and I, but I know from our staff as well, that we were in a situation as a county government of hosting a public meeting through our Planning Commission, and to have such negative behavior towards our fellow public servants. So please, it's not quite appropriate for me to be apologizing for statements that I or my colleagues didn't make, but we can certainly acknowledge that they didn't feel good. And I'll go so far as to say not justified as well. So please don't let that hold you back from your important public service. And also to members of our community, you have every right to your opinions, and no one stands in the way of your sharing those opinions, but please do so respectfully and thoughtfully. So your viewpoints are important to each of us as elected officials. So we have a motion on the table to continue consideration of this ordinance to July 16th, 2024. Should we be taking a roll call vote, or is simple voice vote sufficient?
Voice vote
Well-
would be sufficient, Chair.
Thank you. I always like to check when we're dealing with ordinances, because there are formalities and rules. So all those in favor of continuing consideration of this ordinance to July 16th, 2024, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 4-0. We'll see you all back here in July. So, okay. You're welcome to stay for the remainder of our agenda, but you're not required, and we will not be in the least bit dismayed. But we do have another important item on our agenda tonight, and it's with regard to our role as the Board of Directors of Clean Water Services. We've been working with our various city partners throughout Washington County, including our two largest cities, City of Beaverton and City of Hillsborough to put together a more modern agreement between Clean Water Services, the county's regional storm water and water resource recovery utility, and our cities who deal with the local provisioning for residences and various businesses. So we have a proposal tonight. So I would like to turn it over to Mr. Mark Jockers, who is filling in for our Chief Executive Officer of Clean Water Services.
Thank you very much, Chair Harrington, members of Clean Water Services Board of Directors. We're very pleased tonight to be here to present this tonight for the accumulation of a great deal of work over the last over a year with both the City of Hillsborough and City of Beaverton. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the City of Beaverton's agreement, and I'd like to go ahead and
Hillsborough.
I'm sorry, you're right.
I did
City of
that.
Hillsborough?
I set you up. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. It's right here in front of me, too. I want to go ahead and introduce our Chief Utility Operations Officer, Joe Gall, who will bring up staff for the presentation.
Just call Gall. In Joe Gall joining us at Clean Water Services as our Chief Utility Relations Officer, it meant that we had a prime person poised to answer our partners' questions any day of the week. And so that's where the tagline, "Just call Gall," came from.
We want that to be an easy button. That was kind of the
There you go.
joke internally.
Welcome.
So, Chair, thank you, and board members. My name is Joe Gall. For the record, I'm the Chief Utility Relations Officer for Clean Water Services. And joining me tonight, I'm going to hand this over shortly, are both Bob Baumgartner and Jamie Hughes from our Regulatory Affairs Department. They really carried the heavy load in the last 6 to 8 months working with our partners from the City of Hillsborough in co-creating a new agreement. Jerry, you did a great job describing basically what we've been working on for the last year and a half. So, and we'll be back here in about another month to do the same thing with the City of Beaverton. So with that, before I turn it over to Jamie, I also want to acknowledge there's a few members from the City of Hillsborough here tonight. Rahim Harji, the Deputy City Manager, is here. He may say a few words toward the end of the presentation. And I also want to acknowledge Allison Bergseng. Allison is the Storm and Sanitary Sewer Division Manager for the City of Hillsborough. Allison and Jamie really were the two staff from our two organizations that really hammered out this agreement and worked really well together. And we're really excited to be at this point tonight. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jamie. And you get the magic button. So.
Thanks so much, Joe. Thank you, Chair Harrington. Thank you, Commissioners. I'm excited tonight to kind of give an overview of updating this IGA and presenting this action item to you. So with that, our requested action of you tonight is to approve this operating IGA for our agreement between Clean Water Services and City of Hillsborough for how we operate and maintain our sanitary and stormwater systems collaboratively. I want to emphasize that word. And the IGA really covers a term of 5 years. So as I've said before in past presentations to you all, really the focus of updating this IGA process was first and foremost building this peer-to-peer relationship between Clean Water Services and City of Hillsborough staff. We wanted to build this relationship, build this trust first and foremost before getting into the details of discussing specific items of the IGA, because without that strong relationship between our two entities, we wouldn't have a strong program or strong implementation of those programs. So really it was important to build that trust and that relationship first and foremost. As part of the process, we really wanted the City of Hillsborough to take on greater responsibility for implementation and operating and maintaining their stormwater and sanitary conveyance systems within the city. And the IGA also mentions that Clean Water Services will provide more of an oversight role in how these programs are implemented, rather than as much of the direct implementation. So the district, as you know, we hold the watershed NPDES permit, which covers our 4 water resource recovery facilities and our stormwater program. So the IGA really focuses on the district providing that oversight role for how the permit compliance, how we make sure compliance with the permit still is retained. And we'll provide more of that oversight role. We'll also do the other things that utility does, like capacity and treatment planning, looking at long-term compliance planning, those sorts of things. But really the emphasis in this IGA update is that the district is providing that oversight role, and the city of Hillsborough is taking on more of that direct implementation for its programs, for implementation and operation and maintenance of the sanitary and stormwater system. There's also this recognition that will be more of this collaborative relationship. One of the specific examples that's mentioned in the IGA is for master planning. There's language that says that the city will be doing master planning for the sanitary and stormwater conveyance, and the district will be doing master planning for the regional areas, but there'll be much more of a collaborative relationship, and we'll be working together as we do that master planning process. So that's just one of the examples of how the IGA focuses on this collaborative relationship going forward. The IGA also recognizes that there's more shared responsibilities and that there's different approaches that might work for the city in different areas. For example, the city of Hillsborough might want to develop its own stormwater management plan or its own CMOM plan for how it operates and maintains its conveyance system, with the recognition that the district will still provide that oversight role to ensure compliance and consistency with our permit requirements. So that does give the city more flexibility to develop its own programs. And these are a list of many of the programs where the IGA shows that the city is committing to more of the direct implementation of these programs. For example, the city of Hillsborough specifically is going to be taking on much more of a role in the FOG program, how it works with the food service establishments to abate fats, oils, and grease that might get discharged to the system, and the district will kind of provide that oversight role to ensure compliance with our permit, compliance with the regulations, and provide that technical assistance and oversight guidance. And the city will be doing more of that direct implementation. But this is just a list of many of the program areas that are highlighted in the IGA that the city can take on more implementation in. The district does a lot of long-term regulatory compliance planning as it's looking at future regulations that might be coming down the pipeline. And in the IGA, we have language that states that we'll continue to work with the city to communicate what those long-term regulations that are coming to them might be, how that might impact our system, how that might impact the city's programs, and work together to make sure that those the programs are still being worked on and ensuring compliance with the permit. So basically how Clean Water Services can continue to support the city, especially as they're implementing programs that they're developing. There was much more of a focus on the finance section of the IGA in this update, adding clarifying language around how the city and the district will set rates and charges for the local and the regional programs. There's a language that states that we both agree to update our cost of services studies. Just a lot more clarification around who is doing what related to the finance section. There's language in the IGA on specific operating procedures, including dispute resolution. So if there are disagreements between the city and Clean Water Services, how those disagreements might be resolved through a dispute resolution process where it gets elevated to different levels. There's language about amending the IGA. So I mentioned that the IGA is over covers a term of 5 years, but there's language that states that we'll be having annual meetings with the city to review whether or not the IGA needs to be amended before that. There's also language that states that the IGA can be amended at any time, and there's a process for how that would be done. So the IGA was sent to the City of Hillsborough City Council, and on October 17th, they voted 7-0 to approve that IGA. And so we are asking the same of the board. Before I ask for questions, I just want to thank everyone that was part of this process. I want to thank Bob Baumgartner and Joe Gall from Clean Water Services, as well as Jody Newcomer, who's in the audience today. She did a ton of work on the technical editing parts of this. We couldn't have done it without her. Damon Reishi, Elle Warline, both were very involved in the development review pieces. Kathy Leader on the finance section. We had lots of discussions with her about the finance part of the IGA. Ryan Sandu, Jordan DeSimone on GIS information and looking at the conveyance language and how assets are transferred, and Caroline Lobdell for our legal counsel. And then I also want to thank City of Hillsborough, Allison Briggsing, and Rahim Harji. We worked with them a lot, and without them and our great relationship that we developed, this would have been a much harder process, but they made it easy. So thank you.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Board members, do you have any questions or comments?
Make a comment. That's understanding that the public is home watching a whole bunch of things, not this, and every now and then they're channel surfing and they run into this meeting, and if they were saying, why is this important to me, and what's an IGA, intergovernmental agreement, I can tell you in my entire tenure out here, we've been trying to do this very thing. We've had some agreements, but they've been not very robust and not very good. So this is not particularly sexy work, but this is work that local government does to get the business done. So it's important, because this is the model that we're going to replicate on every one of our cities, to do the hard work of saying who does what and how do they do it. So this is, on this late November of 23, a non-sexy item on the agenda that everybody will say, ho-hum, but I can tell you, this is setting the trajectory for the next 30, 40 years. So great work, and thank you to the City of Hillsborough for being good partners.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners?
I just want to say thank you to everybody, and the fact that you've developed this relationship is the most important piece to me, because this is what will carry through in the future. So my appreciation goes to the City of Hillsborough and to Clean Water Services staff. So thumbs up on this.
Anything, Commissioner Fye? She's ready. Yeah, I'm ready. She's ready. Well, I would just like to add a couple of comments in addition to the thank yous. When, as the Board of Directors of Clean Water Services, when we were first briefed on what staff was proposing to do so that we could lean into this, we were, like staff, just foreseeing all kinds of different circumstances. I mean, Clean Water Services is 50 years old, right? And there are a lot of pipes underground. There is a lot of experience in the different permitting phase, and the two of you continue to teach us a lot about what the next permit might involve, where EPA might be at, what kind of rules are they portending that we might need to satisfy as Clean Water Services utility in order to satisfy the permit, and all the work that you do to train up DEQ staff to review all of that on behalf of EPA. As Commissioner Rogers mentioned, this is a robust agreement. I can only imagine the kind of scenarios that you all had to work through. The what ifs. Well, what if things aren't in the ground the way we expected? And, well, you know, you have this proposal. Now, why would that be advantageous to me? Or why would that be helpful? And why do you really need that anyway? So maybe I just have an imagination gone wild. But this is I've learned a thing or two about the nature of your work. And you make it easy, not only for us in our board role, but also for our community members to take this infrastructure totally for granted, that it just flows. It gets cleaned. It gets restored to the Tualatin River. And we're functioning within our permit requirements. So you've made this look uninteresting, but I know, in looking at the IGA and the result of it, that it involved a lot of work, a lot of discussion, and a lot of commitment to continue to serve our community in a very seamless and orderly manner for at least the next 5 years. We're going to give it a whirl and see how it goes. But you have those processes in this agreement about how we're going to work together efficiently for our constituents in providing them service, so that if there are surprises that arise, we can make improvements, amendments, as you said. And guess what? After 5 years, if we're still satisfied with where things are at, we can take the effort to continue our agreements moving forward or continue to improve them based upon the challenges we foresee in supporting our community as well as what we continue to learn in working with one another. Bottom line, you make it look easy, and I know it was anything but. So after we take our formal action, I would like to invite all of you who've been involved in these discussions and crafting these agreements to please join us for recognition through a picture of this evening, okay? Well, with that, commissioners, I would ask for a motion to approve the operating intergovernmental agreement, referred to as an IGA, between Clean Water Services, also known as the district, and the City of Hillsborough, referred to as the city, for the cooperative management of the sanitary sewer and stormwater systems.
So moved.
Second.
Great, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, directors. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 4-0. Would you care to join us? And if we could put both the logos up, that'd be great. Oh, we got them in hand.
Yeah, it's good for the color and the lighting.
See all of our faces, and we're going to look here first.
Yeah, go straight first.
Look over. See all of our faces. Thank you. You have to text that to Diane. Thank you. And thank you for joining us this evening, too. Please tell your mayor and the council. Good. No, that's okay. I changed my hairstyle, so. I'm really happy to. All righty, that now brings us to our second public comment period of this evening's meeting. Clerk Moss, do we have anyone who wishes to address us for up to 5 minutes an individual?
We do. We have Bruce Bartlett. Bruce?
Welcome, Bruce.
Thank you.
It's good to see you.
It's good to be here and seen by you. This is an honor. I think my first visit to the Washington County Board of Commissioners was in 1983, encouraging the board to pass the community plans at that point. I'm going to go out on a limb. I've wrestled around with this quite a bit. I'm going to read a quote from Isabel Wilkerson's book, Cast, that I think pertains to multiple subjects, and I'll explain why after I read it. An old house is its own kind of devotional, a dowager aunt with a story to be coaxed out of her, a mystery, a series of interlocking puzzles awaiting solution. Why is this soffit tucked into the southeast corner of the eave? What is this discolored patch of brick? With an old house, the work is never done and you don't expect it to be. America is an old house. We can never declare the work to be over. Wind, flood, drought, and human upheavals batter a structure that is already fighting whatever flaws were left unattended in its original foundation. When you live in an old house, you may not want to go into the basement after a storm to see what the rains have wrought. I don't. Choose not to look, however, at your own peril. The owner of an old house knows that whatever you are ignoring will never go away. Whatever is lurking will fester whether you choose to look at it or not. Ignorance is no protection from the consequences of inaction. Whatever you are wishing away will gnaw until you gather the courage to face what you would rather not see. We in the developed world are like homeowners who inherited a house on a piece of land that is beautiful on the outside, but whose soil is unstable loam and rock, heaving and contracting over generations. Cracks patched, but deeper ruptures waved away for decades, even centuries. Many people may rightly say, I had nothing to do with how this all started. I have nothing to do with the sins of the past. My ancestors never attacked indigenous people, never owned slaves. And yes, not one of us was here when this house was built. Our immediate ancestors may have had nothing to do with it, but here we are, the current occupants of a property with stress cracks and bowed walls and fissures built into the foundation. We are the heirs to whatever is right or wrong with it. We did not erect the uneven pillars or joists, but they are ours to deal with now. Isabel Wilkerson, the cast. I wanted to read that for two reasons. One is to give you a clear, unambiguous statement of my own devotion to undermining institutional racism. I have a lifetime of activities that back up that feeling. I won't go into now, but just to let you know that I am so proud of this county for the equity work that's being done and naming the sins of the past so that we can heal them. The other reason I wanted to read this is that Washington County, with its large, even huge, unincorporated urban population, is something that nobody here built, except for maybe Roy. It's an awkward thing, but we own it, and we need to do something with it. So with that in mind, the CCI, I'm chair of the Washington County Committee for Community Involvement, and I'm determined to make it a productive organization group that communicates in a respectful manner. And so I'm looking forward to the strategic plan work. And in the committee in the CCI, we have people with cumulative decades of participation, and some of us were around when the County 2000 plan was being created, and we followed the attempt to update the community, the strategic plan. And in the strategic plan, the CPOs and CCI are called out as entities participating. And Courtney Duke-Dreisen came to the CCI last month and presented the public meeting laws, and in the course of that, we had a robust discussion that raised a lot of questions, and we're forming a series of questions that pertain to the legal status of the CCI, the responsibilities, the liabilities, and so I'll be looking forward to sharing that and working through that. I understand that that the CPO and CCI programs are undergoing legal review of the original foundational documents, 8658 and 8108, I think. And so and having recently read those, there is a lot of room there for more nuanced understanding as to what the expectations and the responsibilities are. So the urban unincorporated area is not something that anybody really wants to deal with, but as we saw with the city of Hillsborough working with Clean Water Services, I am extremely proud that even though we have an atypical form of government, we have a very inspiring degree of cooperation between all of the entities that participate in Washington County. And we might even be on the verge of creating an exemplary system beyond just the simple cities own everything. The Tualatin Valley Water District, Tualatin Hills Park and Rec District, Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue, it goes on. And the degree of cooperation is really inspiring. And so, in summary, if there is such a thing for this kind of statement, I look forward to contributing to the development of a new strategic plan that will serve us for the next, I will go 20 years into the future. And thank you for your work.
Thank you, Mr. Bartlett, also Bruce. I've known and worked closely with Bruce in the community involvement space for quite some time, and really enjoy working with the CCI and CPOs. I don't meet very frequently with either. My district colleagues tend to be closer to that, but I love invitations and will join you anytime. For the strategic plan update, I know Bruce already knows this, but I'm putting it out there in public. Commissioner Treese and I have served as the board liaisons for that project, and the board's going to be doing further work at our next roundtable, and the two of us are going to be joining the December CCI meeting to share the parts that we have, but try and ensure there is readiness on behalf of all of the members of our community who are active in the CCI and the CPO to share their thoughts and input with us. Unfortunately, Bruce, I'm going to disappoint you a little bit, because this strategic plan update, we are just viewing through the time period of 2024 to 2028. So
5 years is okay.
Okay, great. So I'm not able to join my colleagues in extending things out the multiple decades. There's a reason for that, and we'll get into that. But
I understand. And I appreciate you agreeing to come to the CCI in December, and County Administration Deputy, I think, Danny,
yes,
is coming in January to do a follow-on presentation.
Oh, cool.
So we really appreciate the engagement that you're offering us, and we'll make the most of it.
Yes, please, Commissioner Treese, go ahead.
Mr. Bartlett, I also hope that when you look at the information, or when you see the information about the strategic plan, when you see community at large, would you also please see CCI and CPO in those words?
Okay, I
Important
will.
to me.
I do, and I will.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you for being here tonight. Clerk Moss, is there anyone else who wishes to address us this evening?
I did not see anyone else in the auditorium sign up. Would anyone else in the auditorium wish to provide public comment for up to 5 minutes on any county-related topic? I'll look for a raised hand, standing up, coming forward. Not seeing any. Any members online via Zoom wish to provide public comment on any county-related topic for up to 5 minutes. Give you just a moment to utilize the raise hand function. Not seeing any hands. Chair Harrington.
Well, thank you, Clerk Moss. Next, I would like to share under board announcements our upcoming meetings. On Tuesday, December 5th, wow, December already, where did this year go? We will have our 3 meetings. Work session will start at 9 and reconvene, I believe, at 1 o'clock. Our Housing Authority Board of Directors meeting will start at 10, and then our board business meeting will immediately follow that. Sometimes our business only takes 10 minutes, sometimes it takes an hour. So there's a little flex in there. Thank you for staying tuned. Thursday, December 7th, we'll have our roundtable. It will be held at one of our Clean Water Services facilities, the administration building on Hillsborough Highway in the Tualatin Room. On Tuesday, December 12th, this is where things get really interesting in the month of December. We try to be a great place to work, and in doing so, we try to take advantage of the school breaks, and we have 2 weeks of those coming up the last 2 weeks of December. So our last business meeting day will be Tuesday, December 12th. I know it sounds early, but December's kind of short. So we have a work session that starts in the afternoon at 2, just like we've done today, and a board meeting at 6:30 in the evening, which means our staff doesn't have to work on these meetings for Tuesday, December 19th, Tuesday, December 26th, and not for Tuesday, January 2nd either. Our first full meeting in January will be a work session day on Tuesday, January 9th, starting at 9 a.m. Whew, 2024 already. Onward ho we go. Are there any other board announcements this evening? Well, seeing none, how about a motion to adjourn?
Drive safely out there. It's below freezing.
Oh, yeah, icy road season.
I move to adjourn.
Second that motion.
All righty. All those in favor of adjourning tonight's meeting, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye, or burr. I'll take burr. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 4-0. We are done. Thank you.